So it's not
All
made
right.
for webcam use. You just
Oh
make
yeah,
not
they're good
ideal.
cameras, but they have that weird. I heard that was like a regulation. Like you can only. Or maybe I heard it
It's
from you.
tax.
You can
It
only
was a
sell
tax.
it as a
That's
tax.
right.
Yeah.
It's because a video recorder had a higher tax, and so they kind of like say, okay, well, let's limit to 30 minutes. Since then, European Union actually changed that, but Canon stick with the 30 minutes because it's convenient for heat, and so it's like, yeah,
it's a quirk.
it's
To the
annoying.
listener
All right,
who
we're
is
live,
tuning
yeah.
in now, yeah, we're live. You were seeing the video feed. We're gushing over Jeremy's audio-visual setup over there. As you can see, he is leagues above Ethan and myself. So just getting some feedback.
This is
on
a custom white wall.
I can see you invested a lot of that piece of modern art over there.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
This is the Banksy.
Yeah, it's the future.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't tie it to the NFT. Put that on the blockchain. And Ethan's been promoting this stuff nonstop. But we are coveted with another episode of the Run With It podcast here with Jeremy Chatelain. Did I say that your last name correctly?
Perfect, man.
Okay, thumbs
Nice
up. Cool. Yeah, this is the unedited version of the podcast. If you'd like to hear the polished version of it with fewer Banksy references and not talking about NFTs as much, then you can subscribe to us in your podcast player of choice. Would love any feedback that you have for us. As we're recording, we may be able to tap into that and incorporate that into the show itself, which is kind of cool. And even after the fact, let us know what you think. If there's anything that you would like us to do differently, happy to hear that feedback from you all.
Chris cares. I don't. It's fine.
That should be a tagline for me, man. That sounds good.
The tagline is Chris cares. I don't.
Chris cares.
Chris cares.
Yeah, that's all we need. Okay. Yeah, if you guys are ready, we can start recording.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Run With It, the show that brings you untapped business ideas from successful entrepreneurs. My name is Chris Justin, and I'm here with Ethan Janney. Ethan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks to your help and encouragement, I have spent my first $9 or $10 on NBA Top Shots yesterday.
I don't know if I'm proud of that. I don't know if I'm proud of helping you along that path, honestly. I feel like I put you on the path to degeneracy. You're going to show up here.
You're getting credit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry this. I'm minting this banter as an NFT right now.
Yeah, that's so ask your wife to forgive me if that turns out to be a problem.
We'll all forgive you. Let's so on today's podcast we have Jeremy Chatelain. Let's get into it, man. He's a software developer that successfully quit his job on August 1st, 2014, according to him. That's Swiss Independence Day.
That's right.
Very nice overlap. And he started his own SaaS business from scratch. And that platform is called quickmail.io. It's a 7-figure business and a leading platform for cold email automation today. But today we're going to talk about a business idea he's bringing to us in the kind of business networking space. Chris, do you think a business networking market has some legs there?
Yeah, I definitely think it has legs. I think everyone knows that LinkedIn is the top player in the space right now, but no one really likes LinkedIn. They're kind of clunky. They're full of spammers. People are connected with all sorts of folks who they don't actually know. Just the other day, I got a message from a friend said, "Hey, can you introduce me to this person?" I'm like, I don't actually know that person. Don't you know that about LinkedIn? Regardless of all these downsides. I like
to snuggle up with a little LinkedIn before I go to bed at night.
But regardless of these downsides, Microsoft paid $26.2 billion for LinkedIn in 2016.
What? $26.2 billion?
$26.2 billion.
That's $1 billion for every mile I ran in my most recent marathon. Jesus Christ.
That is a ton of money. That's right. And again, they have a lot of room to improve.
That's a mile every 8.5 minutes at my pace. No, sorry, $1 billion every 8.5. Sorry, I'm bragging. It's $1 billion every 10 minutes at my pace. But that's still, I'll take it.
Try to make your marathon times looking better than they are. There are tons of there is a ton of disruption going on in the social networking space. People are unhappy with LinkedIn, and Jeremy has some thoughts on how he would approach this. So,
Right.
uh,
So
I'm
it's
gonna
basically like a LinkedIn killer, you know. He would braggadociously call it.
yeah, networking, a professional networking platform that people actually enjoy. It doesn't have these
Right.
downsides, not full of
Right.
spammers. It's invite only.
So Jeremy, what kind of BS have you experienced with LinkedIn? Why don't you vent for a little bit? Tell us what kind of beef you got with LinkedIn.
Well, before I start venting, maybe I could thank you guys for having me on the show. I think your show is pretty interesting. That it's not one of those egocentric type of interviews. So I'm pretty happy to participate in this new type of podcast, shall I say? And so LinkedIn, I hated LinkedIn. Actually, I was one of the first adopter of LinkedIn. As an engineer, it was so convenient. Didn't need to do any cover letter. I could just send my link to my LinkedIn profile, which I spent a lot of time actually carefully crafting, asking for reviews. And I was pretty happy with my LinkedIn page until I obviously just left the world of 9 to 5 and started my own business, and then I think everything sort of like went downhill. Like, you start seeing a lot of spammers, lots of bots. Like no later than today, I received an invite, one of the many invites, sorry. And it says something like, impressed with your profile. I got something of value for you. And then, as a connect invitation, it's like zero value, zero personalization, zero interest. I'm pretty sure this is a bot. And basically the LinkedIn game is you create as many bots as you can, you connect to as many people as you can, and then you harvest all the information. So,
I also heard you say.
It becomes a big network that is like not really personal anymore. It's just like a big mismatch of lots of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I was listening to one of your episodes of the Cold Email Outreach podcast, and you were talking about different forms of cold email outreach, just cold outreach, and you had mentioned you use LinkedIn for outreach, but you wouldn't use the paid version, that you kind of like just didn't work for you. Is that still the case?
So the email generally performs pretty badly. It's so much easier to use the Connect and add a personalization to it that no one really wants to use the email. The email basically means, I'm going to spam you. Are you okay with that kind of thing? It doesn't actually come nearly, it's not personal enough. And I think people know that, people see that, and they're just not deciding to reply to emails.
I think it's important to talk about here. Why would someone have the hubris to take on LinkedIn? They're a huge competitor, and it can go on and on about all of the issues with it, but still, they're absolutely dominant. They have a ton of money. They have Microsoft backing them. It seems like a fool's errand to try and start a competitor to take that on.
Oh, yeah. There's two things here. The first one is that since when is Microsoft a proof that this thing is not gonna fall? It's like there are many. It's like it's the same with startup that gets huge backup, like lots of funds. It doesn't really mean that they're going to succeed, right? And I think Microsoft can't really innovate that much, so they're just buying stuff, right? It's not, they have the money, but I don't think it's like Bing, right? It's like it didn't really work that well. If they buy something, it doesn't really mean that they are going to bring it one step further. Like the innovation is still missing. And honestly, look at LinkedIn. What is the difference with LinkedIn now and 10 years ago or 5 years ago? I don't see it
very
personally.
Similar. Yeah, they might be doing different things on the back end, or business development things, or recruiting. But yeah, and also you're making me think of the good old Microsoft Apple rivalry, right?
Yeah.
So if Microsoft is going to go ahead and push LinkedIn, then there's a space for not necessarily Apple, but an Apple-like brand that exactly like you said, it's fun, it's creative, right? It's not as, laced up and, kind of buggy and not, people aren't happy with it, but they still make a ton of money. No, like a brand that has a why behind it. It's the famous example that Simon Sinek gives of a company with a why behind it. I don't know if that's the direction you're going, but we can definitely take it in that
it's not.
direction. Jerry's a very matter of fact guy, like from what I know of him. So I'm sure he's got a why behind what he does, but it's not necessarily.
I don't know. This is when you find something broken, you just want to fix it, right? Or at least that's how I feel. And it is a big project. That's probably why I never actually tackled it really. But if I didn't have QuickMail running, this is definitely the next thing I will try, because I think this is so easy to disrupt LinkedIn at the moment. Everyone assumes that this network effect means that no one can challenge them. And I think really honestly, you don't need money to challenge things. I guess one of the things that I'm seeing, that I think Chris is totally right. This is the right time for the disruption. When I thought about we need to create a LinkedIn killer, just because I don't like LinkedIn, the technology wasn't there. Some of the things that started popping up were not there. So I think now we got basically new tools in order to build up this ecosystem.
What's an example of one of the tools?
Yeah, there are two tools, and I think they're right at the right time. The first one is basically now there's a big understanding that, hold on a second, I'm putting a lot of data on Medium, I'm putting a lot of data on Twitter, I'm putting a lot of data, and all of that I'm actually giving away on Facebook. Oh, I'm giving away my data to other companies to benefit from. And I think there is a big wake-up call where, what is it? It's like Substack or something like that, Substack, where people can actually start, making their own article, and then people start paying them. There is BitCloud or something like that as well, which is like the paid version of Twitter. So people sort of realize, like, hold on a second, I'm generating all this revenue, but in fact, I am the owner of that revenue, so I should benefit from that. And LinkedIn hasn't made the move yet, right? Like LinkedIn is the only one that profits from you being on the platform in terms of revenue. Right?
I feel like that's a very interesting point. I mean, I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit, remembering back to say 2005 to 2010 or something like that. It's this sort of rush of this sort of good feeling vibe from companies like Google, where it's just like, just share openly. Like, don't be, it's great for everybody. And it's gonna it's gonna make the world a better place. Don't be inhibited by, trying to own everything. Right. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, that's because their business model is you share your thing, you be open, I'll go hide in a corner and make money off of it, and right. It's taken a long time to really see how that comes to fruition. And it's gotten even, Facebook wasn't hardly around at that point, but it's gotten even worse with Facebook. It's just like, I'm generating all the value and you're just kind of sitting there making me look at, use your leveraging my own chemical processes in my head, my dopamine dependencies, so that I just sit there and make that content.
I agree with that as a problem. I don't think that that's large enough to get people to switch. I think that there's a vanguard of people who are really frustrated with that, but your average Facebook user, your average LinkedIn user, they don't really care who holds their data. Some people even say, I'm glad that they can use this data so that they give me ads that I like. I love buying stuff off of Facebook because they're so in tune with exactly what I want. You hear that too. So I wonder, we're at the forefront of technology. We're doing a podcast, right? But most people, I don't think, would switch based on that reason.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But, you have you always have the early adopters. That's the one you need to find. And the early adopter will probably come from a certain niche. That could be people who pay more attention to their network. That could be, we are going to only serve founders. That's where the invite will come, like the Clubhouse type of things. The idea is basically, once everyone is on that platform, everyone just moves, right? That's the network effect. Like if everyone, Chris, everyone in your network is not on LinkedIn anymore, you're probably going to move. And that's probably one of the, you may be a late adopter, you may be an early adopter. I don't know you well enough, Chris, I'm sorry. But that's the idea. You're not going to get everyone with one idea. You're going to get them as you increase the ideas and as you implement some of the ideas, and then you get the network effect happening.
Yeah. So yeah, I recognize that model in various projects that I've worked on, that it's oftentimes when we start a new project, especially if it's kind of disrupting what's already there, you kind of wish everybody was on board at first, but really if you expect everybody to be on it, force, you're going to be really on board at first, you're going to be really disappointed. And what you need to do is you need to find out who are the enthusiasts about what you're doing and why. Like, what is that reason? And then you have to really leverage that one factor that makes them go, I love this. And don't pay any attention to the people who aren't on board at the beginning, because like you said, they'll come later. Once they don't even know why they went and did it. They just did it because everybody else was there and there was no alternative.
I could answer my own objection, riffing off of what you guys are just saying here, is that the content creators are the ones who would jump ship.
That's
if
right.
you told the content creator that, hey, you're making all this stuff, posting it on LinkedIn, they're benefiting from it, post it on our network, and you get $1 per read of this article or something like that, then something like that would be appealing for them. And then people would start flocking to the platform that has better content.
Look,
yeah, that's definitely a trend.
Sorry, nothing against people with YouTube. You know, I got my own YouTube channel as well, but some people actually live off YouTube, and some people are at that stage where they're kind of influential, but they're not totally making it. And so they're trying different revenue stream. One of them being like, oh, let me try Medium as well. And so they have like multiple revenue stream. That could well be one more, right, to add. So if you manage to advertise that nicely to them, then there are chances that you can get some influencer on board. Once you get the influencer on board, then maybe you get, you know, the people who follow those influencers to also, you know, try that that product.
The other aspect of this that I don't know that I have an answer for, but I wanted to throw into the ring is LinkedIn is more than just a social platform. It's a networking tool, and one that directly leads to jobs for folks. More than 60% of LinkedIn's revenue comes from their recruiting tools. The last time that they reported this number, I think, is in 2015, and it was 63%. LinkedIn Recruiter for corporate costs $900 per month, and it's worth it apparently for folks to pay for that. I think their advertising platform is atrocious, and the premium subscription model, we already talked about that, but InMail is being not as valuable. So I don't know how long people hold on to that, but the recruiting has actually held up for a long time there. And any replacement that you tried to put out there, do we think that it would have to supplant the recruiting part of it as well?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I think that's one thing that I was just trying to consider about, if you were to do something that was an alternative, what was the end result that they would at least hope to get out of it? You know, whether they get that particular result or not. So I know for me, and I'm not huge on LinkedIn right now, but let's say I show up on LinkedIn. What am I hoping? I'm hoping that, you know, somebody I connect with is willing to give me money for something. I mean, to be honest, you know, or we come up with a cool creative idea. Maybe we start a business together. I'm their client, they're my client. So like, that's what I'm hoping to get out of it. I'm not necessarily recruiting. I'm not looking for employees. And personally, I'm not necessarily looking to be employed as a traditional, you know, employee. But yeah, I'm curious, like, yeah, maybe you leave the recruiting things to LinkedIn and you go, let's see, on this one, it's a little bit more about, maybe we can optimize the type of connections you make with people, where it's not just all this random BS, and we can really target it. You know, I'm thinking about apps like Lunch Club, which is a new thing, which kind of promises, hey, you tell us what you're interested in and we'll set up some Zoom calls with, you know, somebody who's interested in the same things, and you'll have a good chat and maybe you'll connect over something. Personally, I haven't had great experience with that, But it's interesting. A lot of people are excited about it. And I think they're excited about it because they're sick of sort of swimming through the sea of useless connections. And they would really like to have a more direct, tailored connection. Like LinkedIn doesn't say, hey, you should meet this person. This is exactly who you need to connect with. They just say, hey, here's a lot of people. See if you can find who you need to connect with. We're just going to put them all up here. But if you could have a service that was kind of like a LinkedIn, but promised to have more targeted connection that's really great for you, it could be interesting. That's what I would think, to answer your question, Chris.
Yeah. And that sort of service, it's continuing on that thread. It's hard to imagine that being free and having enough users to support it if you're not doing the recruiting piece of it. And it depends. I guess it depends on how large of a business you're looking for, but to get to that big network effect and make it such that, you know, LinkedIn has 740 million users, members, I should say, not active users, but 740 million members. What kind of scale are you talking about here? If you're looking just for, you know, the invite only higher tier type of connection.
I don't think there is a limit here, but you're gonna have to operate.
Well, the number
like
of people on
clusters.
Earth ostensibly would be a limit.
Sure, but you know, you got the same thing with Mr. Duke, you know, just saying, you know, 1 billion, 2 billions. Let's go for as many billions as we can. I don't think necessarily. It depends the angle. The chances are, like when we create a company, chances are that you're gonna pivot at some point. You don't really know exactly what's gonna work for sure. I only mentioned one part of the company, which one part of the one part of the plan, which is being paid for your page, being paid for your content. But the other part of it is cryptocurrency tokens. There is things like at the moment that
you said it because I didn't want to.
Ethan's validated right now. You gotta
not talking about NFTs. I think it's total BS, the NFT, but we could have a different conversation about that in the future. That said, there is like Brave, the browser, and that is you know, it's probably making some people uncomfortable at Google. But the point is that they create.
Just explain Brave really quickly.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should. Brave is basically. Oh, sorry, you were about to. My bad.
It's a more privacy-focused browser that blocks many of the ads that you see. It's faster, and it also allows content creators to directly monetize their content built into the browser.
Beautiful.
Oh, I didn't know that part of it. And also, you can earn. I think you could choose to watch the ads that they would normally block. And when you watch them, there's like, I think they call them basic attention tokens or something like that. You basically get paid to watch ads, which is not, you know, not unheard of in the past. Like I get paid to go do a market research survey or something like that, you know, and those things could pay pretty well, actually.
Well, this is the second technology that I was mentioning that I think is ripe at the moment, because microtransaction was very difficult, especially with Visa and MasterCard, because they're taking huge amounts for transaction fees. But now with those sort of like crypto money, cryptocurrency, you could definitely create a LinkedIn killer token kind of thing. And you could do some airdrops as well. Whoever is the 10,000 people who come to their website and then start building their own profile and then start, you know, connecting with other people will, you know, get those tokens for free and get some tokens. So the interesting thing here is that you can actually bootstrap a company like that with zero funds except virtual currency funds, right? Which you basically will say, I'm going to create my company with 20 billion funding, even for, you know, those billions are actually not dollars, right? They're in your own cryptocurrency. But if people are smart, they may actually jump on the project where your cryptocurrency is worth 0.0.0.01 cents of a dollar. And then you bootstrap it that way. You basically use your own cryptocurrency as a startup funding.
Yeah. There's some really interesting aspects to this. And a couple of them are number one, what you said before, this sort of early adopter thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's people, if you watch what's going on in cryptocurrencies right now, there's a boom right now, but it's a lot of the people that were early adopters in the past, 5 or 10 years that have made this boom possible because they decided to get into definance, stuff. When you could have a savings account for Bitcoin, you could have a platform, Coinbase, to trade it. I don't know why I can't talk today. But
Me
anyways,
neither.
so there's something exciting, and also I don't know if you want to take this, but the decentralized aspect could be interesting. That there's some
Yep.
sort of decentralization.
That's the whole point.
But another cool thing about it is not only could you potentially earn these tokens by posting, right, content. A platform like Telegram is doing some interesting things with that. You earn dust when you interact on Telegram, but you could, it actually, if it's a job professional related thing, there could be a setup. People have been talking about this where you can actually earn by helping someone else's career advance, right? Like you could even have investment in other people's careers where you get a return on investment,
Oh,
just
that
like a
would be fun.
recruiter would if somebody gets a great job, or maybe recruiters don't even have to, deal with billing at this point. It's just a matter of the blockchain keeps track of the fact that this person connected this person, and there you go, you get a commission on the connection. That's interesting things, and I don't know that that's being done.
Well, I was
Seems
going to
like
bring
it
out
would. Will.
there's an example. The closest example that comes to mind for me is Steemit. Have you guys heard of Steemit?
Nope.
It is STEEMIT. It is similar to Reddit, except it's on the blockchain. And content creators, when they post content and their content is upvoted, they get paid for that. And people also get paid for consuming some amount of content. It's huge in Korea. I don't know why it's taken off in Korea and not in the rest of the world. But I'm looking at the front page here, and there's a post from 20 hours ago, and so it's been upvoted to the tune of $706. So it's a decent amount of money. It's non-trivial amount of money that's going on here. There's some for 448, $698, all within the last day.
So
if you look,
so you can actually see how much that person is making from it being upvoaded.
Yeah, from it being uploaded.
It's more transparent. For like a YouTube, I can see, oh man, they've got millions of downloads, and maybe they aren't monetizing it, or YouTube's taking all the money out of it or something.
Right.
No, YouTube is certainly taking most of the money out of it. It's just
especially at this point.
No question about it.
It's kind of like YouTube, Amazon, all these open marketplaces where you would get a commission for this or that. They're reducing the
amount peanuts
you get.
So thinking of action steps here, thinking about how we would approach this idea to get it rolling. One thing that comes to mind for me is to do some research, and I'm sure this has been done, on the reasons that people use LinkedIn. Why do people go there? Do they go there to procrastinate? Do they go there to learn about their business or their job, how to get better at it? Do they go there to make these connections? What's that percentage breakdown? And how can you hack it to give them the most of what they want in a way that is user-generated content?
Yeah, you can also take that approach that's been recommended, with apps. App sounds like an old thing to think about, but there used to be this approach that you would say, oh, find an app on the App Store that has a lot of complaints, but also a lot of users, right? So it's like people are using this app, but they're not so happy. And then all you do is create your own version of it, but fix all the things that people are complaining about. So you could definitely take that approach as well. Try to find out what are the most common frustrations and complaints with LinkedIn, and see if you can't create something that addresses those.
I think you also have to experiment with a completely different format. I think it may be naive to think that you can do the similar thing as LinkedIn and just fix some of these bot bugs and other issues that they have and surpass them. We're not talking about that. We're talking about incorporating cutting edge things like NFTs and crypto. I just had to say that for you, Ethan.
Just no NFTs.
Yeah, no NFTs. But
do I get to plug the new podcast?
Yeah, plug away, man. We'll have you go.
Yeah, look for the Edge of NFT podcast. Yeah. We got our first episode up.
But there has to be
2 or 3 up by that point.
Yeah, there has to be some twist that's going to make users flock to the platform. And I think before you do a full rollout, in the beta period, you experiment with that. Jeremy, you talked about pivoting. That's your chance to figure that out.
Yeah, this is interesting, Chris, because at the end, you will probably end up with something that may actually be a very profitable business, and it has nothing to do with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn carry on being crappy and not innovating and carry on. It is totally okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess what Ethan and I are complaining about is the quality of the network. And people tell me, well, it's your fault, you shouldn't accept those people and so on. But I kind of like disagree with that, because when you realize this, it's way too late. The other thing is, there is no real, this is something I like in Clubhouse, is that you can see actually who invited who. The problem is that everyone just gave away their invite like that. Like, hey, do you have an invite? Yeah, I don't know you, but hey, here's the invite because I got plenty. I guess what would be very interesting is that, if someone is flagged as spammer or annoying or something like that, then it reflects on the person who also has invited this person. So you will end up with a very well curated, network where you can connect to only the people that are interesting. And it will totally make sense to connect to also the people that those people have invited, because for sure that they're good people and at least they're really well connected.
The obvious tension.
That's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, super interesting idea. The obvious tension with that is, how do you introduce that sort of friction in a way that doesn't inhibit the growth too much? You want to make it one of the reasons that LinkedIn.
I don't think it inhibits, because what it does is it creates scarcity. People want to be a part of it. Like, I wouldn't want to be what is it, Groucho Marx? I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member, right? So, but this is like a club that they're really not sure whether they want you to be a member, but I guess you could be a member as long as you bring somebody that's
plus,
cool.
Bear in mind, the growth, you can also funnel it by saying, if you're one of the first, as early as you come, then you get more drops of, tokens. So you want to come earlier, but the people don't necessarily want to take the risk to have you as well. So I think that could be an interesting dynamic to play with. Maybe it will totally flop, but definitely an idea worth exploring, I think.
Yeah, if you go that direction, it's probably going to be a younger crowd, which maybe
it's
doesn't
okay. They're the future. Yeah, who wants old dudes?
That's true.
I'm old. I don't need to be on LinkedIn anymore. I'm fine. I'm sorted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like in my mind thinking, the specifics of what happens, right? Like this, because let's say, like, look at Facebook right now. If I send too many messenger messages or something, and they're all the same, and it's like gets to be spammy, Facebook will be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, they have these little pop-ups that say like, hey, don't do this. And then they'll be like, if you keep doing that, you're going to be suspended for a few days or whatever.
It sounds like this is a personal experience.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be fully upfront here. I've definitely tried to push the limits of Facebook. But wouldn't it be interesting if it's like, so I'm getting some sort of like a reprimand, right? Like my account is stalled for a day or two or a week or whatever, or maybe there's some like points that come against me. But you could just create like little deductions or like little subtractions to somebody else's. Maybe they don't get off the platform, but maybe they get 1 out of 10 little anti-tokens, and if they get 10 points against them, then they have their own repercussions. It could work pretty well, and it could give people that sense of, this is a community that we have to maintain with something special.
What that makes me think of,
to abuse.
Yeah, what that makes me think of is the disconnect between how people act in the real world when you see someone face to face or even over a video call, and how people act just over text-based internet. It's common trope that people on Twitter will just, rant and scream via all caps at each other, saying things that they would never say to another person's face. And if they met them in person, they wouldn't actually do that. But we haven't figured out how to have the decorum of real world interactions in these semi-anonymous online communities.
By the way, I just thought of a really funny idea. What if it's a platform where you could use expletives, but there was some type of currency and you had to pay extra? And it would like totally reinforce this idea of dropping the F-bomb, right? Like, you can use the F-bomb, but it's a bomb. Like, it costs a lot, right? Like, to produce this actual word.
I mean, all the rich people would just be
They just be
displaying their
dropping
wealth
F-bombs.
with you're not wearing gold, you're just dropping curse words for no reason.
A status symbol.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you introduce the notion of money and for whoever is owning those pages, there's a platform called Clarity FM where you actually go to pay the experts. The problem I have with this platform is it would be nice if this integrates with effectively seeing the curriculum of people, seeing the proper recommendation from other, like really seeing what other job they've been working on. So basically a merge of Clarity FM and LinkedIn would be probably more convenient for someone browsing. So it could well be in that network that you will end up paying with those crypto tokens. Like, okay, well, I see Chris, he's an expert in podcasting. Let me go and pay him. The other thing, Chris, in order to get you on the platform is I could send you an email and say, Chris, you got $200 waiting for you on this platform if you create your account, because people are either seeking for your advice, or they started following you, and so therefore you have unclaimed tokens that you could go and start claiming, right? And because we know that everyone on the platform is a real human being, then that's going to be much easier to manage the number of tokens and do some things like that. Otherwise, you're going to have like plenty of bots who create fake bugs, create some fake follow-up and stuff like that. But if you make sure that everyone on the platform has a certain is a human being, and then you have those sort of like limited number of invites that limits the growth, then you can do much more things like that won't scale, once the network is properly installed. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think that's a good place to start wrapping up here, coming up on time.
Well, I had one more thing. I wanted to ask Jeremy about, because we had a conversation a couple of years ago when we actually didn't know each other that well, but you had some advice for me, and you talked about pivoting for this business, and I think it'd be interesting to just bring up this idea and see where it might apply. And so basically, I was coming to you. I had a business that was working okay, but wasn't sure whether I should commit to it or go to something else. And you said, listen, if it's working a little bit and you've got some money coming in, it's likely that you can expand that amount of money by testing other things, right? And then I even see how you're doing this with QuickMail, right? You have QuickMail, and it's a platform that people can use as a software, but you also have a course, right? And you also have a podcast, and you also have different now forms of revenue and products, and that's expanding how you create revenue. So I don't know if you have any specific examples or ideas. Maybe you don't, it's fine. But yeah, if we start this, can you imagine any directions that you can go then to kind of expand or pivot?
From where exactly? Pivot from
let's
where?
just say we start with just generally we're in the business networking space, and we're trying to get people on board a business networking platform.
Yeah,
that's kind of the basics.
Kicking off is always the difficult part. It's a sparkle. How are you going to sparkle this network? We keep on saying like go niche. Like, for example, it will probably start as a curated personal network. Like, I could contact all my founder friends and just make sure that we're on this network. It may turn out like actually it's flopping. Okay, well, let's go and see if maybe some people who are influential in the cryptocurrency space, maybe they want to have their sort of profile or some community just for them. It's always that you're going to try one pocket or one small niche. It may succeed, it may fail, but if you start having traction, like I mentioned to you, if you got one client, you can get two. If you get two clients, you can get four. If you get four clients, you can get 10. So this is this sort of like snowball effect. And once I find out a branch or niche that works, it could be influencer on YouTube, those people who try to get multiple source of revenue, or it could be people trying to sell their course but need some sort of authority or social proof or something like that. So you try to keep on iterating and find out those little niche. So I guess at the beginning will be finding the personal network first of all, seeing if people would be interesting, and they will tell you no and probably 200 times before you find one yes, and that's okay. But once you find the yes, you're going to have to find out, why is this person saying yes? Why do they actually want to go? And then try to capitalize on that. That's probably how I would do it. And that's why I say that it's fine. The thing you're going to learn during your journey may take you somewhere completely different. But those two technology that I was talking about, those two trends, which is like getting paid and not getting to a fiat currency, but getting in crypto and decentralized, those are actually huge at the moment. So that may be a time opportunity for doing that stuff that may not be there in 2 years or 3 years time. That will be what I would be thinking of, and keep on experimenting. That's super important at the beginning, because right now we're just like guessing, and it never works. You need to get some clients to figure out straight away if it works or not.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, Chris, where were you headed?
We're wrapping up, headed to the end here.
Let's do it.
Damn.
Jeremy, where can listeners go to learn more about what you're doing?
I guess people can check out, I got a few places. People can check out my Twitter account. It's J Chatelain. Yeah, I know I could have chosen an easier one, but it's the first letter of my first name and then the rest of my surname. And otherwise, I'm on Facebook as well, pretty active on Facebook. I know it's on old stuff, but yeah, I wish we do a Facebook killer too at some point, but that's coming. It's like, that's fine. That's going to happen. I don't need to be involved in this one. Otherwise, quickmail.io, this is my product. Go and check it out for your needs for cold outreach.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like you're on pretty much all the social, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that. And you also have a podcast called Email Outreach, right?
That's right, with Jack. Awesome co-host. Yeah, I never really committed to any of those, just because I never really had the traction in any of those. That would mean go full in. So yeah, I guess I'm a little bit on everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got an incredible background for Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Out of whatever you did.
I paid for it. No.
All right, Jeremy. Hey, it's been a pleasure speaking with you here. Really enjoyed the idea and fleshing it out about how we're going to take on LinkedIn. Hopefully a listener will take that and be inspired by it. Let us know what you think. Email us at update@runwithit.fm. And Jeremy Chatelain, thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you, guys. Awesome chat.
All right, cool. I'll take us off social.
The social, I'm going to...
You're unplugging.